spring has finally arrived here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. At least we think it has. Hopefully it'll stay for a while. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, in addition to reviewing what took place last week with baseball, softball, and tennis, and volleyball, we're going to talk to some senior student athletes who have spent 4 or 5 years here at IPFW. I want to talk to them and see how they've persevered over that period of time. And we're also going to talk with Joe Pachota, who is the assistant men's basketball coach here at IPFW. We're going to talk a little bit about what he saw firsthand at the Final Four in New Orleans. So a lot of things coming up here on Mastodon Spotlight. Stay tuned. We begin the show in just a moment right here on College 56 Sports.
Hi, I'm Amanda Tapping. On Stargate SG-1, my character discovered that the Stargate could be used as a key to unlock an endless variety of adventures. Your key for endless adventure is a good education. Don't limit your options. Stay in school.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Miles. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. As I said a moment ago, at least Mother Nature finally seems to know where Fort Wayne, Indiana is. As for the last couple of days, we finally have some warm temperatures, blue skies, and sunshine. Hope it sticks around for a while. As always, we begin the program with reviewing what took place last week on the athletic front here at IPFW. And we're going to start with baseball. Last Tuesday, Coach Billy Gurdon took his squad to West Lafayette to take on the Purdue Boilermakers, and Don struck early, scored 3 runs in the first inning, 1 in the fourth, had a 4-2 lead, but Boilermakers came back with single runs in the fourth and the sixth to tie the game up. And then they scored 4 runs in the seventh and 2 in the eighth, final score 10-4. On the plus side, Brandon Armstrong, Eric Lambert, and David Zachary had 2 hits apiece. Travis Johnson took the loss in relief for IPFW. Again, final Purdue 10, IPFW 4. Thursday, they came back home, took on the Butler Bulldogs from the Horizon League in a doubleheader. Game 1 went the way of IPFW by a score of 1-0. IPFW only got 2 base hits, but they collected one that counted. David Zachary, Zach Walton. It was Zachary knocking in Walton with the game's only run. Kellen Marshall pitched a fine ball game, shut out the Bulldogs on 5 hits, walked 1, struck out 9. Again, Game 1, IPFW 1, Butler 0. Game 2 won extra innings, and unfortunately IPFW came out on the short end of a 6-2 score. Butler scored 4 runs in the 10th inning, all with 2 outs, 4 runs on 4 hits. IPFW committed 2 errors, and Butler, 11 base hits off 3 IPFW pitchers. Ryan Keena, Tyler Fowler had 1 RBI apiece. Again, final score in Game 2 was Butler 6, IPFW 2. On Thursday, the team went up to Mount Pleasant, Michigan, took on the Chippewas of Central Michigan and wished they hadn't. Final score, Central Michigan 20, IPFW 6. The Chips banged out 18 hits, collected 6 base on balls. IPFW had an error as well. The big inning, the 4th inning, Central Michigan scored 13 runs on 10 hits. Again, final score there, Central Michigan 20, IPFW 6. Then on the weekend, on Saturday, doubleheader at Valparaiso. Game 1 went to the Crusaders by a score of 2-1. Tyler Fowler had 2 of the 6 IPFW base hits, and Jason Horvath deserved a better fate. He gave up 2 runs and only 2 hits, walked 2 and struck out 9, but he did lose, and his record dropped to 4-3. Second game also went to Valparaiso by a score of 7-6. Valpo scored twice in both the first, 4th, and 6th innings. IPFW had 2 runs in the 5th, 4 runs in the 7th, but they come up short. Destin Freeman had 2 of the IPFW 5 base hits in that ball game. Casey Rohan took the loss. He's now 1-3 on the year. The 2 teams traveled back here to Fort Wayne on Sunday, played another doubleheader. Things much better for the blue and white. In Game 1, IPFW wins 6-2, scoring 3 runs in both the 3rd and 4th inning. Ryan Keena and Jacob Abelson had 2 hits apiece. David Zachary evened up his record at 3-3, gave up 2 runs on 5 hits, no walks, fanned 13 in the win. Again, IPFW wins the first game 6-2. Game 2 goes to the Dons by a score of 5-2. IPFW scored once in the fourth and twice in the fifth to break a 2-2 tie. Billy Banks, the hitting hero, he went 2 for 3, scored twice, and knocked in 3 runs. Adam Ferris in relief evened his record at 2-2, and Doug McDonald came on and got save number 4. Again, in the second game, it was IPFW 5, Valpo 2. The Dons are now 14-18-1 entering play this week. Quickly, volleyball men's team closed out the regular season. They traveled to University Park, Pennsylvania Friday night, took on the 9th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions, and unfortunately lost in 4. Jeff Patak had 11 kills, Matt Zubashevsky and Angel Ruiz had 9 kills apiece. Not a bad loss in the sense that Penn State's 23-5 on the year. Saturday night, final MIVA match. Better news, the Volley Dons win, beating Mercyhurst 30-20, 34-32, 30-26, and 30-23. Jeff Patak had 20 kills, Matt Zubashevsky 16 kills, 10 digs, 3 aces. Angel Ruiz had 10 kills, Ryan Staley had 12 digs, and Dennis Santiago had 53 assists. Regular season is over. The Dons finished 10-6 in the conference, 14-9 overall. They will open up conference quarterfinal play Saturday night at Columbus, Ohio, against the Ohio State Buckeyes at 6 p.m. Fort Wayne time. We'll let you know how things turned out on next week's program. Finally, almost finally, I'll try to hurry it along here. Softball, busy week. Last Tuesday, they lost a doubleheader to Purdue by scores of 8-0 and 19-0. On Wednesday, they had a doubleheader against Western Michigan postponed due to weather. And on Saturday, they came home, took on Eastern Michigan from the Mid-American Conference, and swept the doubleheader by scores of 6-1 and 6-5. Beth Herman in the opener got her 8th win of the year against 3 losses, and Mindy Pomeroy got her 3rd game in the nightcap. IPFW softball team now 12-15 entering play this week. Last but not least, in tennis, last Friday the men defeated Tennessee State 5-2, lost to Eastern Illinois 7-0. On Saturday they lost to Illinois Chicago 7-0, and on Sunday they lost to Toledo and Tri-State, both by scores of 4-3. The women lost to Louisville last Tuesday 7-0. Friday they defeated Tennessee State 6-1, lost to Eastern Illinois 7-0. Saturday they lost to Wisconsin Milwaukee 4-3. And on Monday of this week they lost to Akron 7-0. That's what's happened last week for IPFW athletics. Time for a break. When we come back, we're going to speak with some student senior athletes to see what they've enjoyed or not enjoyed over their careers here at IPFW. But we'll have that when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Have you saved a life today?
I took 2 flood victims to a shelter.
I donated a day's pay to help a family that lost everything in a fire.
Have you saved a life today?
I teach a class in infant CPR.
I donated a pint of blood.
Have you saved a life today?
No. But today somebody saved mine.
The American Red Cross. Together, we can save a life.
In another lifetime, one of toil and blood. When blackness was a virtue, the road was.
If we do not take responsibility for saving animals from extinction, we allow a part of ourselves to die with them. Help World Wildlife Fund protect animals in the places where they live by ordering a free action kit. Together, we can leave our children a living planet.
Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter from the storm.
I'm sick of dealing with you. I'm sick of.
I work 6 days a week.
Who do you think you
Stand
are?
up straight.
Don't you ever talk back to me again! You just shut up!
What are you crying about?
What a child learns about violence, a child learns for life. Teach carefully. We can show you how. Act against violence. Call 877-ACT-WISE for a free brochure.
I wasn't going to school because I was hanging with the wrong crowd. And one day I was put into juvie for 2 stolen cars, robbery of a house, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. When I was locked up, that's when I really realized that, I mean, it wasn't for me. Like, I was only in there 2 months, but to me that was enough. It'd be better for me to stay in school, just get my education. I think I'm happier now. I know I'm happier now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. As I said earlier, this week is dedicated, for lack of a better term, to the senior student athletes here at IPFW who have put in a lot of time and effort, not only in the classroom, because they are student athletes, but on the athletic field as well. And we have with us senior Amy Grove from women's volleyball. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
You are a typical example of somebody who has persevered for 4 years. I want to go over some numbers. I don't have all the numbers, but when we look back, 1999 season, 166 kills, 4 aces, 121 digs, 26 block assists. In 2000, was down to 27 kills, and you were hurt, and we'll talk about that in a moment, and 30 digs. In 2001, you had 70 kills and 6 service aces and 47 digs. And I know last year, this past year, senior year, you didn't play much until right towards the end of the season because you were beset with injuries. Let's go back, and in your own words, let's talk about your 4 years here at IPFW. And start off first with, when you came here as a freshman, what were your hopes and dreams and expectations?
Coming here as a freshman, I guess just felt like an honor to be an athlete at a college, at a Division II level. Didn't even think of the Division I factor at that point in time. I just came here for the degree, to graduate in 4 years, to get out of school, and to play volleyball, and just the whole experience of it. And as the years went on, got a little rough there for a while, but it's ended pretty well, I think.
For those of you that don't know, Amy's a senior from Mansfield, Ohio. And when I hear Mansfield, Ohio, going back and dating me, I ran track a couple of years back in high school, and the Mansfield Relays was the big thing. You came here from Mansfield and played volleyball. When you stop and look back, as you say, when you first came here, we were a Division II school. Were you always an outside hitter?
Yeah, always.
Always?
Always been my position.
We briefly looked at some of the numbers, and obviously it looks like the freshman year you were relatively injury-free. But after that, the bug hit. Any idea as to, looking back now, as to what in the world happened?
A series of bad luck, as I would say. My mom says not enough calcium in my bones. My freshman year, as far as season 1, I was okay. And then in the spring, that was when I had my first injury. I broke a finger. Then my sophomore year during season, I broke another finger. There were just random things that happened to me. It was just a freak accident, so it wasn't anything I did or just bumped into people or a ball caught my finger and just took it with it, and just things like that. And then my junior year, I worked back in, to playing and stuff. And then in the spring of my junior year, I had the absolute worst injury ever and tore my Achilles tendon. And
I've had one of those, a slight tear, so I know a little bit what you're talking about there. I was on crutches for several weeks. As long as you don't have to have the surgery, that's...
Oh, I had the surgery.
Did you really?
It was not fun. Me who was scared to death of needles.
You have something in common.
Yes.
When you were injured, how frustrating was it not to be able to be on the court competing?
I think it was the most frustrating when I tore my Achilles tendon, because I had to sit there during all of spring season and just sit there and watch. At least when I broke a finger or something, I could still dress and I could still do some things in practice. At least I could run and stuff, but I felt so lazy and out of it when I broke my Achilles, or tore my Achilles, because there was nothing I could do. I had to just sit there and just watch and hope to walk again. At that point I couldn't even walk without crutches.
when you had the surgery, did a thought come into your mind that I'm all done playing?
Yeah, it was definitely a factor, and it was like, you know, I've only got one more season left. Is it really worth it? Isn't it worth it? But after weighing the factors and a lot of long talks with my parents and with Coach, I had to talk with her, and you know, I decided it's my last season and I'm going to go out strong and rehab hard over the summer and see what happens.
I'm going to ask you the same question I plan on asking the other seniors that are going to be on this program a little later. When you came here, IPFW was a Division II school.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden we had that infamous press conference where IPFW was planning on going Division I. And there was that 1 year, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but I call it the 1 year of purgatory, for the simple fact that we were not a Division II school, couldn't compete postseason, and I know that's something that your particular team, I feel, would have qualified. In fact, the 1 year you were actually, last year you participated in the Great Lakes Valley Conference, you were the regular season champs in the, I think it's the North Division. And, but you were denied a chance to participate for the conference tournament and couldn't go to the NCAA Division II tournament because the school had announced that they were going to go to Division I. And I know the volleyball team was hurt, the men's soccer team was hurt, I believe men's baseball team had a shot at at least conference postseason play. And I think every team, to some extent, lost some members of the team due to the Division I rules being different from Division II. What was that change like for you?
Well, we had some upperclassmen that had a good take on it, and they made IPFW stand for I play for what. And really that's what it was, but after a couple weeks went by and, you know, it started to settle in a little bit, we decided, you know, we're playing for each other, and that's what it's really all about. It's not about who wins the conference. I mean, yeah, that's a great honor and everything, but we decided to make it for ourselves, and it meant a lot more to us just because we did make it for ourselves.
We don't have too much time left, but I got to ask you, highlight and lowlight of your athletic career here at IPFW.
I think the highlight would be definitely all the friends I've made and the experiences I'll take with me. I mean, I'll graduate this semester with my degree and not decided exactly where I'll be yet or what I'm going to be doing, but that's definitely a highlight for me, and I would say the lowlight would probably be my injuries.
Your degree is in what field?
I'll graduate with my degree in finance.
If I remember right, I think back in the fall, Coach was talking a little bit about you were trying to decide whether you may stay in Fort Wayne or possibly go back home.
Yes.
You're still mulling over that decision?
Yes, still weighing the options.
But as far as volleyball goes, it's strictly going to be recreational from here on out?
Probably. There's been talks, you know, of coming back and being a grad assistant, but at this point, I just kind of go in there and play around with the girls for fun during practice.
Final question, because I know we won't tell the prof, but we're keeping you out of class for a few minutes. But 4 years here, was it worth it, even in spite of all the injuries and that? Was it really worth it to put in all that effort?
I would say most definitely. I mean, like I said, the experiences and the friends I've made are just beyond explanation.
Any final words of wisdom to anyone out there watching tonight who wants to become a student athlete here at IPFW?
Not that I can think of. Good luck.
Good luck. On that, we'll say thanks for coming in, and congratulations on a good career here and great perseverance fighting off those injuries.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Amy Grove from the women's volleyball team. We'll take a break and talk with some other student athletes in just a moment, but that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns right here on College 56 Sports.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Places that comfort us with their serenity. Places that astound us with their beauty. Places where our memories come to life. Precious places. timeless places. Places that with your help can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
I was a liberal arts major in college.
I didn't speak a second language.
What could I?
What could I offer the Peace Corps?
The answer surprised me. I served in South Africa teaching HIV/AIDS awareness.
Working with my students in Nicaragua was a great experience. We taught each other a lot about our countries and cultures.
This is the Peace Corps today.
Redefine your world. Join the Peace Corps.
Apply now at peacecorps.gov.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. As I said earlier, we're dedicating this show to senior athletes who have spent 3, 4, 5, in one case 5 years here at the university trying to get their academics in order and also perform well on the athletic front. Joining us for this segment are 2 members of the men's basketball team. I know I'll get in trouble for saying this, but for lack of a better phrase, kissing cousins. To my immediate right, D'Angelo Woodall, and to Dee's right, Brad Knoll. And I say it in the kindest way, kissing cousins, because you two came in together along with a couple of others. And not only did you start out, and Brad, in your case, playing for your dad, but I believe in your sophomore year, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't you guys roomies at one point? And so forth. But let's go back in the memory banks 4 years ago. When you first came here on campus, what were the thoughts and hopes and goals and dreams? Dee, we'll start with you.
Like I always said, it's always just been playing Division I basketball, and Coach Noel, he made me a promise on my visit that I would get a chance to play Division I basketball, and just meeting a group of guys that I played with and known, and just basically just having a smack at it and just going at it hardcore.
Brad?
Like Dee said, when we first came in, we didn't know what to expect. Coaches were new, teammates were new. It was a new system, high school to college, starting all over again. It's been something where we can look back and say, this is kind of where we've came from, but we've worked hard to get here, and now it's time to go. But I can't tell you how much fun practicing, with Dee every day was, and the other guys, and not that every day in practice was fun, but
I've got to ask you the inevitable question. What was it like playing for your dad? I mean, there are pluses and minuses to it, but your thoughts?
It was definitely well worth it. I've become a much better person, and I think it's allowed me to grow up a lot faster. Knowing now what I've gone through and what I went through, as far as just the little things, to him finding things to yell at me about just for the sake of yelling. But
I've got a question for both of you pertaining to that. Brad, on your side, were you afraid that your dad was going to pick on you more because of perhaps a feel of necessity, because he didn't want to show favoritism to you? And conversely, Dee, you come over here from Freeport, Illinois, you're just getting to know Brad, and you're just getting to know his dad as the coach. Mm-hmm. Were there any rampant thoughts at all as you started to develop the relationship and started to practice as teammates? Hey, is this guy getting special privileges from Dad? Is it good, bad, or indifferent? Brad, let's talk to you first. Did you feel at times that Dad was picking on you? This is not meant to pick on Dad, because I know he's taller than all of us and he'll clean our clocks, but
I don't know about
that. But it's a son playing for a father is a unique relationship.
I guess to say being afraid of it, I wasn't afraid because I knew what to expect. I knew his coaching style. And, I guess that's a challenge that I had to take on. I come here and, I'm a freshman. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows my father. And so it's something that I have to build my own name. Now, if we were back in Michigan, they would know me as the coach's son more than they would have here. However, having to establish my own identity, I guess, is something that, you know, just positively affected who I am.
Your turn, D.
I don't think he got any special treatment, but I would say he probably got picked on a little bit sometime by his dad because he wanted the best for his son, and that's just how it goes. When you have your son playing for you, you want him to do the best that he can. You want to see him succeed. But I would also say that anything that Brad got handed to him, he earned it because he was a hard worker. He would be in the gym first. He would be in there last. And I think anything that he got, he deserved it. But I mean, when we were Division II, I would say that he was probably depended on more. And then when we went to Division I, he kind of didn't know where his role was and what he needed to do. But he still stuck with it, and he still worked hard every day. And that's what I like about him.
Let's talk about that. When you both came here, we were a Division II school, member of the Great Lakes Valley Conference. And as we talked about in an earlier segment with Amy Grove, all of a sudden the announcement comes that IPFW is going to Division I, as some people would say, the promised land in NCAA athletics, the highest level of competition you could get. You had some transition, that transitional year where most, if not every athletic team lost members of some degrees for the structure that NCAA places on Division I student athletes as opposed to Division II, as opposed to Division III. And then basically for 2 years, you've been playing a Division I schedule, which meant a lot more traveling, perhaps less time in the classroom, less time to study. How were you two guys able to work and live through the change from Division II to the transitional year to Division I, and the differences that you've seen Division II versus Division I?
First, I would say that transition year, we don't like to say it, but I don't know how many people think it, but I think that was tough on us as far as athletes go because we couldn't compete in postseason. And I don't think we were really looking forward to that year. And then we actually start making the transition, and it was tough playing Division I and being on the road a lot and just coping with the studies. And what you had to do was basically you had to take your homework. You had to basically know what you're going to do when you sat down and had time to do it. And I would say that I haven't always did my homework all the time. I would sit and watch TV sometimes, but then when I got back to IPFW to campus, it would take a toll. You would get to class, you have a test, and you're like, man, I should have studied harder than what I did. But then you just take that and you take it as a lesson. And next time you go on the road, you know you got to study more, you got to read a little bit more, and basically just hope for the best.
Brett?
As far as the transition goes, I mean, that was just hard on a lot of people. Whether the sport, it didn't have any, wasn't a difference, but it's something that there's pluses and minuses to everything, and if we sit here and say how much the Division I's benefiting us, well, we don't know the effects it has on the soccer program, the men's volleyball program, and at times you kind of feel bad that there may be some turmoil with some of the other programs, and like there was with ours at times. We feel fortunate because I think we have benefited from this change and the transition. We've been able to compete with the Michigan States of the world, the UNLVs, the Wyomings, and having a schedule like that, I would have never thought 4 years ago, we'd be doing that. So I guess for me, growing up and having that dream of being a Division I player, it's come true. We gotta, like they say, live like rock stars. You go on the road, you travel, you miss an awful lot of class. And Dee said, it's hard to stay on top of school. Luckily, I had some great professors who was, willing to work with me. And that was the key part, I think, as well for us to succeed. Because I wouldn't be graduating right now if it wasn't for some of the professors I've had.
We're actually out of time, but we're going to try to create some quick time. 2 quick questions. As quickly as you can, highlight and low light here at IPFW as a student athlete. D?
Like we talked about it earlier. I mean, just getting those dunks against those mid-major teams and just the crowds that you played in front of. it's just a dream come true, like Brad said, and I wouldn't want it to go anywhere else. And I would say low light would be, we had, like Brad said, we had some turmoil, and I mean, we leave it on the court, off the court, it's non-existent. So, like you said, blood, sweat, and tears. I love the team. Love you guys. Shout out Q, the team. You know, I'll take it easy.
Brad, you got the final say.
We'll start low light. Probably the transition in itself. You know, having to leave a few players behind, and the relationships we make with them, and the steps we take, and them unable to be with us. You know, that's unfortunate, but you know, you just got to move on, I think, sometimes. Highlight, senior day was definitely a highlight. Not only scoring 1,000 points, that was great, and I guess that was fine, but the highlight of that day for me was just to see my father's face and his expression, because of, I mean, it's just a test for us throughout the year. We've come to that point, and to play Wright State the way we did, to go out on senior night like that, to, you know, have a nice crowd at the Coliseum, just propelling everything into next year. I think that was probably the highlight, all in one day.
Congratulations to both of you. You persevered, as all the student athletes that we're talking to this week have done through several years, in the classroom, on the basketball court in your cases, hotels, airplanes, buses, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But congratulations on 4 very good years here at IPFW, and we wish each of you nothing but the best in future endeavors, whatever they may be.
Thanks
for coming on this week on the program.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, 56.
Thank you.
We've been visiting with D'Angelo Woodall and Brad Knoll from the men's basketball team. We'll take a break and return with more of Mastodon Spotlight right here on College 56 Sports.
Hi, I'd like to volunteer for something in legal aid. I was an assistant district attorney in New York City. I successfully prosecuted everything from extortion to murder.
That was a TV show. You weren't really an assistant district attorney.
I guess this isn't really a badge.
That's a Screen Actors Guild card.
I can spell habeas corpus. H-A-B.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
May he bless you and keep you. May he grant you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for coming. We'll see you all next week, and please be careful going home.
This is me, and my mom and dad, and my big brother Alex, and Jack. This is the day I learned that sandals got their name from sand, and that the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget I was sick. This was my wish.
Hi, I'm Cindy Thompson for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Real life is not always a song, and in less time than it takes to play the latest country hit, someone will be injured or killed in an alcohol-related crash. So next time you're out with someone who's been drinking, don't let them take the wheel. Take the keys instead. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
This party isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We've been spending the bulk of our program with some of our senior student athletes, and we've got some others that want to appear, and they were supposed to come on this week, but sometimes things happened, as we'll talk about briefly with our next guest. And we couldn't do any more of the student athletes this week, but we will. We hope to have a few more next week. Student athletes who have spent 4 and in one case 5 years here at the university, and so we're going to talk to some more of those people next week. If you may remember, about 3 weeks ago, we had scheduled to appear assistant coach for the men's basketball, Joe Pachota, and something came up and Joe couldn't make it, so we went to the bullpen and brought in Sports Information Director Mike Jewell, and today Joe is coming out of the bullpen and paying us back for not being here 3 weeks ago, but we're happy to have you with us. And first order of business, and we'll get it out of the way quick. Kudos to you. It's going to be announced very soon, officially, that your title is being changed from assistant coach men's basketball to associate head coach men's basketball, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, as John mentioned before we started taping, how much more money does that mean? And do you get your own TV gig next year? Or?
No. Too many more responsibilities. But yeah, it's an honor. You know, it makes me feel good that Coach. You know, I know he relies on me a lot, and it makes me feel good. I mean, granted, it's a title, but you know, with everything that he allows me to do and the responsibilities that he gives me, it makes me feel good that he trusts me enough. With the title, but more importantly, those responsibilities to get things done the way that I know he would want them done concerning our program.
And on the personal side, that does come with some potential benefits down the road.
Yeah, you know, I think you know, there's the title of associate head coach. There's a lot of top assistants that have those titles around the country, and those guys are, you know, now a step away from stepping into a program, whether it be Division I, Division II, into a head coaching job. So, you know, hopefully, like I said, it's something that looks good on the resume. You know, and when my time comes for my own head coaching position, my time will come. But right now, I'm happy being here with what we've got going on.
Basketball is actually over. It's been over here since the end of February, 1st of March. But you and Fred and Doug were down in New Orleans, where my family and I were 11 months ago, so I know it's a great town. But you were down there for the Final Four. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask your thoughts of the participants and how it turned out with Syracuse winning the national title. And after we talk about that, let's talk about some other doings in college basketball.
Okay, yeah. You know, I'm a little sad that it's over. I'm always sad because, you know, now you don't have any more games on TV. My wife's ecstatic because she gets the TV back, but but yeah, New Orleans was a good time. First time I've ever had a chance to be there. The Final Four is always a good time. It's just a basketball celebration for about 4 or 5 days. Some pretty good games. You know, you see that first game in the semifinal with, you know, the Marquette and Kansas game, and what Kansas did to them. It was really kind of surprising. You wouldn't expect to see a game like that in the national semifinals, but pretty competitive. You know, not a big Syracuse fan, but you know, you got to give credit to them, you know, and what they did and what they were able to do against Kansas. You know, pretty high potent offense team, and can play on both ends of the floor. But that 2-3 zone gives people a lot of problems, and it's something that you don't see a lot of Big 12 schools, any schools in the country, period, playing a lot of 2-3 zone. But especially in the Big 12, it's, you know, you're going to play some smash mouth, man to man, and the 2-3 zone is totally different. So, and Boeheim played it well.
Let's take it one step further. You're right, Jim Boeheim's been at Syracuse as a coach for 27 years. Right. He was a player there, a walk-on player, and he loves it there in Syracuse. The 2-3 zone, and we saw its effectiveness. And Syracuse not only won the national tournament, they also won the Big 12 title, because in the tournament they defeated, in no particular order, Oklahoma State, let's see, who was it? Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. So they win, and they were the top 4 finishers in the Big 12, so Syracuse wins the Big 12 instead of the Big East.
Right.
Can that 2-3 zone be effective here at IPFW?
I don't know. You know, we've experimented with some zones, some 3-2 zones, some 2-3 zone. I think it's one thing where if you have the kind of personnel that can play that and be effective with it, I mean, if you look at what Syracuse had, their personnel was right along the same height. Their back row guys, their front row guys, obviously a little bit smaller, a little bit quicker. But the big thing is if you can play 2-3 zone is that back row. You know, they're big, they're long, they're going to cover a lot of ground. I think the times last year we played zone really well, throwing different looks out there. Perfect example is when we played at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. You know, we played a pretty good first half. Second half we were phenomenal because we played about 19 minutes and 30 seconds of 3-2 zone. You know, they were a team that struggled shooting it from the perimeter. We knew that going in, so you know, our guys knew that if we wanted to win, we had to hold them under 30 points in a half. We hold them to 19, and a lot of it was due because of our zone.
Let's go into a different topic. besides basketball and besides Bourbon Street, there were other activities in college basketball as the Final Four came to a close. And I want to briefly talk about a couple of areas. One, coaching changes. You always see them, but this year, some of the higher profile jobs, as we are taping this interview, we find out that last night, Roy Williams, who was the head coach at Kansas, has taken over, going back to North Carolina, where he was an assistant to Dean Smith for, I believe, 8 years. So a 15-year run ends for Roy Williams at Kansas. He took over a program from Matt Doherty, who, in the eyes of most everybody, was forced to resign by his players. It's a case of the inmates running the asylum. In that particular case, am I right on that? Was it? And as a coach, is it fair to say, hey, players, you can't run the asylum? You got to listen to the coaches that are on staff?
Well, I would hope so. And granted, I'm no North Carolina insider, but those were a lot of the things that I had heard that was going on in Chapel Hill. And that's unfortunate because you put yourself in a position where, you know, the buck's going to stop on the head coach's desk. And, you know, players should be doing what basically the coach tells them to do. I know a situation at St. Bonaventure, and that's an ugly one. The big thing, and one thing personally that I think a lot of it revolves around, is responsibility. You know, kids being able to step up and take responsibility for their actions and some of the things that they do or don't do in certain situations. And another thing is leadership. Leadership will begin and end with us as coaches, head coach all the way through, you know, your entire staff. Situation with St. Bonaventure, you know, that was something where their head coach gave them, you know, the leadership position and said, make a choice. Well, you know, I'm not anyone to say whether that's right or wrong, but when you do something like that, in a way you compromise yourself as a leader, as a CEO of a corporation, if you will, and then put the players in a position where they need to make a decision, and they did. You know, whether that was right or wrong, I believe it was wrong, but you know, who's to say? And unfortunately, it may cost some coaches their jobs.
A couple other issues. Ben Howland, who was the head coach at Pitt, an Elite 8 team, tells his players that no, he's not going, but he is a Southern California native. And when Steve Lavin was fired at UCLA, as soon as Pitt was out of the tournament, within 36 hours, Howland was in Los Angeles interviewing, and he takes over at UCLA. He pulled a Dennis Franchione. And for those of you who don't know Dennis Franchione, he was the head football coach at the University of Alabama. And when the season ended, he ended up taking the head coaching job at Texas A&M and didn't tell his team that he was leaving. He left it up to his assistant coaches. In basketball, Ben Howland did the same thing. He took the job, then went to New Orleans for the Final Four, and then he was going to talk to his players, or former players at Pitt. Right or wrong, good or bad?
Wow, that's tough. I think the more honest and upfront you can be with your own kids who've committed to you, who've bought into you and what you're selling within your program, I think the better off that you're going to be. You're not going to make everybody happy. You look at the situation with Coach Williams and Coach Howland. Here's two guys that have the opportunity to go back home, like you said, and step into programs that, you know, that they grew up basically idolizing. You know, Coach Williams worked there for a while, and shoot, his children attended school there.
Yeah.
So I think no matter what, guys need to make decisions on, as far as what's going to be the best interest for them. Now, along with that, it goes hand in hand with, you know, making sure you're honest and upfront with your kids. Some kids aren't going to like it. Some kids, I think more often than not, down the road are going to respect that honesty. It's a tough call because a lot of it is personal. Because not only is it a professional move, but you know, you've got two coaches that are uprooting their families as well. So it's a tough decision.
Two quick questions before we're done. Number one, if there could be some changes, would you like to see a period of time elapse from the time the Final Four is completed before the coaching carousel really does its thing? You have a situation, and I'm sure everyone saw it. Kansas loses the championship game. Williams is being interviewed on national TV, and good, bad, or indifferent, the reporter asked, in the midst of his team just losing by 3 points in the national title game, "Oh, are you going to take the North Carolina job?" If it were me, I'd probably deck the person, whether she's a female or male.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was right. Should there be a grace period of sorts so that there's not this pressure put on for coaches to make a move? That's my first question. And then the follow-up question, because we're actually out of time, if a coach makes a move, such as a Roy Williams or a Ben Howland, should the student athletes who are seniors who have signed national letters of intent, should they be allowed to be released from that letter of intent if they sign because they want to play for a particular coach?
Right. I think there's no way you can start or stop that carousel. I do think, and one of the buzzes that was floating around New Orleans was the way North Carolina handled that situation, as far as, letting go. The whole Matt Doherty situation it is, but actually, forcing him to resign right around that particular time. And everybody and their brother knew who they were going for. And unfortunately, Coach Williams was working that weekend, so it was, an added pressure thing. I think if Carolina might have waited a little bit longer until after the Final Four, then they make their move, things might have been a whole lot cleaner. As far as letting high school seniors that are going to be freshmen, there is a loophole where they can, but it's up to that school to release them from that national letter of intent. And then you could open another can of worms with the kids that are there in that program right then. If a coach leaves to take a better job, should they be allowed to transfer without having to sit a year? Or should they have the ability to transfer and sit out that 1 year like they do now? There you're looking at a whole lot of suits that make a whole lot more money than us, making decisions on what's going to be right or wrong or indifferent. So I don't think anybody's ever going to come up with a clear rule as far as how to handle a situation, like a tough situation like that.
I wish we had more time, but we don't. But I thank you for coming in on very short notice.
My pleasure.
Again, congratulations on your soon-to-be-announced appointment as associate head coach. And I can't wait for October 15th or 12th or 13th, whatever that Friday night is, for Midnight Madness to start again. Sounds crazy, but...
It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mike.
Joe Pachota's been our guest, the associate head basketball coach here at IPFW for men. We're time for a quick break, and then we'll wrap things up on this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Take the break, come back in a moment. You're watching the Mastodon Spotlight on College 56 Sports.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
Hi, I'm Joe Perry. And Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, here for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Never let someone you know get behind the wheel if they've been drinking. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
I like to volunteer with the Neighborhood Emergency Response Team to help the firefighters. As you know, I was Fireman of the Year 3 times.
You're Mariano Rivera.
Thank you.
Fireman of the Year is a baseball award.
Yes.
You're not actually a fireman.
No.
Fireman of the Year, huh?
Just a few more minutes.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
Can you pass the salt, Dad? Salt is to pepper as gregarious is to... Oh, no, not more SAT questions.
In ancient Rome, salt was a form of currency. True or false?
False?
True.
Son, can you locate sodium?
Or chloride?
There are tons of ways to help with your kids' learning.
Find the really good ones on connectforkids.org.
You have 3.5 grams of salt and a 5-gram slug. What's the rate of shrivel?
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Again, thanks to Joe Pachota for appearing, as well as Brad Noel, D'Angelo Woodall, and Amy Grove. We appreciate them coming on the program. Time now to look ahead to what's going to happen this coming week on the athletic front here at the university. And we're going to start with baseball. Tuesday, the team went down to Bowling Green State, the Mid-American Conference. On Wednesday, they're back home, doubleheader against the University of Dayton. And the significance there, Tony Vittorio, the former head coach of IPFW baseball, coaches the Dayton Flyers. So he comes home, in a manner of speaking, for a doubleheader on Wednesday night. On Saturday, the team travels up to Detroit to take on the Titans of University of Detroit Mercy for a doubleheader. And next Monday, they play host to Taylor University. Softball. On Tuesday, the team is at Valparaiso for a doubleheader. On Wednesday, they're going to be at Notre Dame for a doubleheader. And next Monday, they've got a doubleheader here at home against Ball State. First pitch scheduled for 3 p.m., so come on out there for softball next Monday. Tennis, the men's and women's teams are both at Cleveland State on Tuesday. And on Friday, the men complete their regular season with a Mid-American Conference match at home here against Northern Illinois at 3 o'clock. Track and field goes down to Indianapolis this weekend to Butler University for the Indianapolis Relays on Saturday. And as we said earlier, volleyball postseason starts Saturday night, Columbus, Ohio, 6 p.m. Fort Wayne time. Ohio State the opposition, third time the teams have played, but this time it's for keeps. Winner goes on to the semifinals, a chance to make it to the Final Four in Long Beach. Loser calls it a season. So we wish Arnie Ball and the Valley Dons best of luck there. That's about it for the program this week. Next week, we'll hopefully talk with some more senior student athletes, and also hope to have some highlights from baseball and softball and who knows what else, but that's going to be next week's show. And again, that's it. Again, thanks for tuning in as always to see what's going on with IPFW Athletics. This is Mike Maas saying have a great week. We'll see you next week, and go Dons. Due to some technical difficulties, this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight is only going to be a 30-minute show. But we're hoping to pack a lot of things into that 30 minutes, including highlights of baseball and softball action that took place earlier this week. We're going to talk about a big volleyball victory that the Dons got over at Ohio State last Saturday night. And we're also going to talk to senior volleyball player Ryan Staley and reminisce a little bit about his career here at IPFW. Again, our show is called Mastodon Spotlight. It's only a half hour this week, but it's coming up next right here on College 56 Sports.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maas. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, first and foremost, I need to make a little apology. Normally our show is 1 hour long, and we actually thought we had taped a couple of interviews with head coach Eric Burns from the men's and women's tennis team and a couple of his freshman men's players, Daniel Jackson from Muncie Delta High School and Scott Beasley from Wawasee High School. And lo and behold, the infamous technical difficulty problem cropped up. And fortunately, in 5 years of doing this program, it hasn't cropped up very often. But unfortunately, we won't be able to bring you those interviews this week. So consequently, our show is going to be a little bit shorter. And we do have Ryan Staley that'll be on later, member of the men's volleyball team. And we will have that interview for you. But right now, let's begin with our weekly review of what transpired last week here at IPFW. And we're going to begin with baseball. Coach Billy Gernon's squad played a number of games. And while I talk to you about what happened, you're going to see some highlights from a game that took place on Monday here at home when the Dons entertained the Trojans of Taylor University. But we go back to last Tuesday when IPFW traveled to Bowling Green, Ohio to take on the Falcons of Bowling Green State, member of the Mid-American Conference. And IPFW fell on the short end of a 17-8 score. The fifth inning was the problem inning for IPFW as Bowling Green State scored 12 runs to break open an otherwise close game. Again, final score was 17-8. On the plus side for IPFW, Dustin Freeman, Brandon Armstrong, and Tyler Fowler each collected 2 hits apiece. So a little bit of offense, 8 runs. Unfortunately, the 12-run inning did IPFW win last Tuesday. Then on last Wednesday, the team returned here to Fort Wayne, went across the street to Memorial Stadium, home of the Fort Wayne Wizards, and took on the University of Dayton Flyers in a doubleheader. The key note here is that Dayton is coached by Tony Vittorio, who was Billy Gernon's predecessor here at IPFW as the head coach for baseball. In game 1, close game, IPFW spotted Dayton a 3-0 lead as the Flyers scored runs in the first, fourth, and sixth innings. IPFW came back with a run in the sixth and a run in the seventh, but couldn't get any more. And final score was Dayton 3, IPFW 2. Dustin Freeman, 2 hits to lead the IPFW offensive attack. Pitcher Kellen Marshall perhaps deserved a better fate. He went the distance, all 7 innings, gave up 3 runs. 2 of those were earned. 5 hits, walked 2, and struck out 6. But he fell to 2-3. And again, final score in game 1 was Dayton 3, IPFW 2. In game 2, the bats went silent for the Mastodons. 1 hit by David Zachary was all they could muster up. And the Flyers swept a doubleheader, winning game 2 by a score of 6-0. So a good return for Tony Vittorio, not so good for IPFW. Last Saturday, the baseball team traveled to Detroit, Michigan to take on the Titans of the University of Detroit Mercy, member of the Horizon League. In game 1, IPFW scored twice in the 6th on an RBI double by Brandon Armstrong along with a wild pitch. Came from behind, defeated the Titans 3-2. Adam Ferris, in relief, won his 3rd game of the year, and Doug McDonald picked up his 5th save. Again, game 1, IPFW 3, University of Detroit Mercy 2. In the nightcap, Titans got revenge. They scored 3 runs in the first inning, 1 in the second, jumped out to a 4-0 lead off Casey Rohan. Never looked back. Defeated IPFW. Final score was 6-1. And again, Casey Rohan took the loss. Then on Monday, and some of the highlights that you're seeing, and the highlights that you're seeing is the first inning against Taylor University, the Trojans from Upland, Indiana. And Taylor is at bat, and 2 of the first 3 batters reached base on base hits off of Kellen Marshall. But Kellen bared down and ended up striking out the side, so to speak, struck out the second batter and the 4th and 5th batters, and got out of the inning with no runs allowed. And in the bottom of the first, IPFW scored 3 times to take a 3-0 lead, and they collected 1 more run in the second, 5 in the 5th, and 4 in the 6th, pounding out 10 hits altogether. Final score, IPFW 13, Taylor University 0. Ryan Kenya, Brandon Armstrong, Sean Kirk, and Zach Walton had doubles. Kellen Marshall went 5 innings, gave up no runs on 4 hits, walked 2, and struck out 9. As he improved his record to 3 wins and 3 losses. overall, as we're taping this broadcast, IPFW now 16 wins, 22 losses, and a tie on the season. That's what happened on the baseball diamond. Now, let's turn our attention. Track and field competed over the weekend at the Indy Relays down at Butler University down in Indianapolis. Had some good times. They've got a meet coming up this weekend at Purdue. We'll talk about that a little later. Tennis now, and we were going to talk more in detail, but you're not going to see that interview. The men's tennis team last Tuesday defeated Cleveland State 4-3. Michael Chase Jr. at number 4 singles, Daniel Jackson at number 5 singles, and Jesse Nico at number 6 singles, victorious for the Dons in singles play, and they won 2 of the 3 doubles matches to get the doubles point. Again, a 4-3 victory over Cleveland State on Tuesday. On Friday, they finished the home season by losing to Northern Illinois 7-0. Ironically, Northern Illinois is going to be IPFW's first-round opponent in the Mid-American Conference Tournament. We'll talk briefly more about that later in the program. That takes place on Thursday. The women's team completed their season last Tuesday at Cleveland State, and they also closed out with a win. Francesca Solari at number 1 singles, Joe Carey at number 3 singles, and Beth Miller at number 5 singles won the singles matches. And the number 1 doubles team of Solari and Carey, number 2 doubles team of Stephanie Blaney and Beth Miller won the doubles. So the Don women finish with a 4-3 win, and overall they finished the season with a record of 6-19. Men's team enters tournament play with a record of 7-18. Now let's turn our attention to volleyball. Big match last week at Columbus, Ohio, as the MIVA postseason tournament started quarterfinal play. It was number 5 seeded IPFW visiting number 4 seeded Ohio State. Ohio State came into the match having won the last 10 matches between these two schools. And what a match. IPFW won the first set 30-28. The Buckeyes came back and won set number 2 30-22, set number 3 30-27. And they led set number 4 15-9, had the mandatory 15-point timeout. And for some unknown reason, Lady Momentum, decided to change jerseys, took off the scarlet and gray jersey, put on a blue and white jersey. And IPFW rallied. They tied set 4 at 22. It was tied at 28. And then the Dons won the last 2 points. They won the 4th set 30-28 to force a 5th and deciding set. IPFW jumped out to an early lead. Ohio State came back and tied it 7-7. The Dons went ahead 10-7, and they were able to hold on, and they won the match 15-11 in the 5th, winning 3 sets to 2, snapping that 10-match losing streak. Some of the individual numbers. Senior Jeff Patak from Hamburg, New York, 30 kills, 10 digs. Sophomore Matt Zibaszewski from Toronto, Ontario, 28 kills and 10 digs. Freshman Sardar Sikcha from Istanbul, Turkey, 7 kills in 9 attempts, and he had 16 block assists playing in the middle position. And then sophomore setter Dennis Santiago, 67 assists, 10 block assists. The Dons scored 24 points in the match off of blocks alone. They doubled the number of blocks at Ohio State. They actually had 25 blocks in the match. Ohio State credited with 12.5. And just a great victory for Coach Arnie Ball's Volley Dons. And now it sets up a semifinal match against the top seed Flyers of Lewis University. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And finally, we go back to the softball diamond. And IPFW Keith Fisher's squad played 3 doubleheaders over the last week. As I talk about those doubleheaders, you're going to see highlights from a game on Monday against Ball State, IPFW in the blue, Ball State in the red. But as you're watching that, we shift our attention to last Tuesday. The team traveled to Valparaiso, took on the Crusaders from the Mid-Con, and they swept a doubleheader, winning by scores of 5-4 and 4-3. In game number 1, senior Crystal Fisher, 3 for 4. Jenna Beachy, Maggie Bruning, and Angela Grabchik had 2 hits apiece. Mindy Pomeroy came in out of the bullpen and won the game, her 4th game in relief. Again, final score was 5-4. Mastodons in game number 1. In game number 2, the Dons came from behind. They scored once in the 6th and again in the 7th to win 4-3. Crystal Fisher again went 3 for 4, and this time she had 2 runs batted in as well. And Tierney Green from Northside High School and Maggie Bruning, also a Northside graduate, they had 2 hits apiece. Mindy Pomeroy came out of the bullpen again and won the game in relief. That was her 5th win of the year against 7 losses. That was a good game, good day on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, the team traveled to South Bend, took on the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. And the news not so good. They lost game number 1, 10-2, collecting only 3 hits. And in game number 2, they lost 9-1. They only had 1 base hit. That was by Maggie Bruning. The bats were silent. Dons lose a doubleheader at Notre Dame, 10-2 and 9-1. Then, in the highlights that you're seeing now, on Monday they played a doubleheader at home against Ball State Cardinals, again, Mid-American Conference school. And the news not so good. In game 1, a couple of unearned runs scored by Ball State. Cardinals won game 1 4-2. Maggie Bruning went 4 for 4, and Jenna Beachy had 2 hits to try to spark the IPFW attack. Beth Harmon, the starter and loser on the mound for the Dons, her record drops to 8-5. Again, final score in game number 1 was Ball State 4, IPFW 2. And then in game number 2, the Mastodons jumped out to a 3-0 lead in the first inning. Ball State came back, scored once in the second, once in the fourth, and then 3 times in the 6th inning, taking advantage of 2 base hits, 1 walk, 1 IPFW error, 1 hit bats person, and 1 wild pitch. Cardinals come from behind, 3 in the 6th. They win the game 5-3. Mindy Pomeroy, the losing pitcher in relief, her record drops to 5-9. On the plus side, Maggie Bruning had a single and double at 3 at-bats. And as we tape this show, IPFW's record in softball now 14 wins and 19 losses. That's what happened on the athletic front here at IPFW last week. Again, we're going to go to a break, and we apologize. You're not going to be able to see the tennis interviews due to technical problems, but when we come back, you will see an interview we had with Ryan Staley, a member of the men's volleyball team who is enjoying the big victory over Ohio State. And he's going to talk to us about his years here at IPFW, and that interview will take place when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
I like to volunteer for the neighborhood emergency response team to help the firefighters. As you know, I was Fireman of the Year 3 times.
You're Mariano Rivera.
Thank you.
Fireman of the Year is a baseball award.
Yes.
You're not actually a fireman.
No.
Fireman of the Year, huh?
Just a few more minutes. When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
Can you pass the salt, Dad? Salt is to pepper as gregarious is to... Oh, no, not more SAT questions.
In ancient Rome, salt was a form of currency. True or false?
False?
True.
Son, can you locate sodium?
Or chloride?
There are tons of ways to help with your kids' learning. Find the really good ones on connectforkids.org.
You have 3.5 grams of salt and a 5-gram slug. What's the rate of shrivel?
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We want to continue our little series that we started last week, talking with senior student athletes here at IPFW. Want to do a little reminiscing and look back, look ahead as well. And in this segment, we're happy to have with us a member of the men's volleyball team, and we welcome to Mastodon Spotlight senior Ryan Staley.
Hey.
You are a little bit different in the sense that you did not start your collegiate career here at IPFW. You started it at Rutgers Newark and then transferred here.
Mm-hmm.
First question I want to ask is, you made the move, to let our audience know, you are from the state of Illinois.
Yes, Chicago.
Chicago area. So you initially graduated from high school and then went to Rutgers, which is in New Jersey. I guess the first question I want to ask is, your initial decision to go to school in New Jersey, leaving Illinois. I know I was caught up wanting to get away from home.
Yeah.
Was getting away from home the first reason to leave home and go out of state in the first place?
Actually, that never really factored into it. This reason I went to Rutgers Newark is because I knew that I wanted to play top level volleyball, and that was the one school that was actively recruiting me. So that's where I chose to go.
You were there a year, and then you decided to come back closer to home. What led you to come here at IPFW?
Couple things. It was really expensive to go there, and it was just I wasn't getting enough money from scholarships and loans and stuff to cover it. Also, there was a lot of distractions out there being right next to New York City and stuff, and that kind of affected my grades a little. And I knew that I needed to focus more on school and stuff, but still wanted to play at the high level. So when we were looking for other colleges to transfer to, IPFW came on top of the list, especially at the time, me looking at engineering. So.
Talk a little bit about your relationship with Coach Ball.
I think it's actually grown this past year alone, just partly because of my interest in going into college coaching, and I think that once he really realized that that's what I wanted to do, he started working with me a little more on, in practice saying, okay, well, this, if you go into coaching, you need to be able to do this and do that and stuff. And like the other guys say, he's definitely a father figure to us. He disciplines us when we need to be disciplined, but also gives us a lot of respect. Even though he demands it back. So.
You've been here 3 years now. Let's go back a little bit. Your first year here, the 2000 season, I believe it's 2000-2001 school year, I believe. We had an awfully good team that had been to the Final Four the year prior.
Yeah.
And I thought we were going to go back to the Final Four, but unfortunately we ran into a roadblock called Ohio State, ironically, and we'll get into that in a moment, in the conference final, and we didn't make it. And then the last 2 years, or last couple of years, we've had injury problems.
Yeah.
And then this year, expectations were high, started out well, ran into a little bit of a snag, but now I think you're playing your best volleyball as a team and coming off a big 5-set win over Ohio State. You're in the MIVA semifinals. It's David against Goliath Friday night. You're going to go up against top-seeded Lewis, who's ranked 5th in the country. And if you can win that match, you're going to play for the conference championship and a berth in the Final Four Saturday night against either Ball State or Loyola, teams that we split with this year. Briefly, Ryan, talk about your 3 years, some of the good, some of the bad, and some of the ugly.
Definitely the first year, there were, the downside was losing and not going to the Final Four, especially the team we had. But the positive side of that one was that I got to meet all these great players and play with them every day. And I know that just increased my playing level. Pretty much all I did was just dig balls against Hector Soto, Jeff and Scotty and all those guys, and which kind of helps with where I'm at now, playing on the floor and stuff. The next year, we went to Division I and we lost some players due to eligibility rules and stuff. So it was a tough season, but a lot of learning. Same thing with last year with the injuries and stuff, just a lot of learning. We had the upsides were some matches that we won. We had some big match wins 2 years ago when we beat Loyola here at home. And then last year, gosh, there's a whole blur, but it's a lot of learning and stuff like that. But this year, it's been a disappointment that we haven't played as well as we could have all year. But I think that right now, we're starting to peak, and that's the best time to do it. So.
We always talk about how a sport is maybe 80 or 90% physical or maybe 80 or 90% mental, depending upon one's point of view. Briefly, to go back, the start of last year, Jeff and Maddie had both had knee surgery in the off season. They both worked extremely hard to come back. And opening match, set 5, 0.9. I remember it vividly because Ryan Perrott and I were calling the game on Channel 56. Maddie goes up for a block and tears his knee out. And because of that, and Jeff hadn't been fully rehabilitated, the decision was made not to play those two the rest of the year. From a psychological standpoint, talk about the mental. Hopes were high. You lose your two best players, offensively at least, with the knee injuries. Mentally, it took you guys right down the tube, so to speak.
Yeah, it was really kind of depressing because we had high hopes like this year of having, you know, a really strong team and everything, and to watch Maddie, you know, go down again, it just, you know, we're like, and knowing that Jeff wasn't at 100%, we just couldn't, you know, rebound from that. Even though the next night we turned around and beat Concordia in 5, who was a solid and nice team, with you know, me playing outside hitter for the first time in my college career, and, you know, and a couple freshmen on the floor. But I guess as a team, we took it in stride and still played hard. And I think that's helping this year with the team because we had so many other people playing and learning and stuff like that, that it's really giving us a lot of depth this year. And like Coach says, it's proved itself in matches. So.
We're basically out of time, but we try to invent time when we can. As John so neatly knows, or unneatly knows, real briefly, Ryan, highlight and low light of your time here at IPFW.
I'd say the people, my teammates, is the highlight. Just great friends, great people to be around, and they don't, you know, they've always taken me in, and no questions asked. On the low side, I guess a disappointment the last 2 years of not winning. Well, maybe the 3. You know, the disappointment not going to the Final Four in the last 2 years, and hopefully we can turn that around this weekend.
Best of luck because you got Lewis, as we said, they're number 1 seed in the conference, 5th ranked in the country, and they've beaten you twice.
Yeah.
But Ohio State had beaten you 10 times in a row before last Saturday night. So hopefully you and your teammates will, as I say, be the giant slayers and knock off Goliath, and then go on from there. And hopefully we can talk next week about you guys going to make a trip out to California.
Yeah, well, let's take care of Lewis first.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And good luck in whatever field you choose after graduation.
Thanks.
We've been speaking with Ryan Staley, a senior student athlete here at the university, member of the men's volleyball team. We'll take a break and come back with more of Mastodon Spotlight in just a moment, right here on College 56 Sports.
I'm Richard Dean Anderson. On Stargate SG-1, we discovered that the Stargate device could be used to explore an endless variety of adventures. Your device for endless adventure is a good education. No matter what your goals might be, you'll go a lot farther if you don't drop out. So keep your options open. Stay in school.
Step out of the car. Open up the trunk. Check inside. What's going on? Hands on the car. Bingo. Got it.
Today's teenagers, the way people talk, you'd think they can't do anything right. It's just not so. We get to know over 300,000 kids a year, smart kids, who know what they want. They believe in themselves, and they believe in America. Some go straight to college. Others choose to learn leadership, discipline, courage, and commitment first with us. Today's military, making a stronger America, one good kid at a time.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Again, we thank Ryan Staley for appearing with us. We wish him well this weekend in the MIVA finals and semifinals. Looking ahead this week, IPFW Athletics. As we tape our program this week, later today, Tuesday, IPFW's baseball team travels to Toledo to take on the Rockets, a rematch of a game played here in Fort Wayne earlier this year. On Wednesday, baseball team hosts Eastern Kentucky at 3 p.m. Softball team has a doubleheader here at home against Butler University. First pitch there, 3 p.m. On Thursday, the men's tennis team travels to Western Michigan to take part in the Mid-American Conference postseason tournament. Their first round opponent, Northern Illinois, a team that beat them 7-0 here last Friday. We wish the tennis team well there. Also Thursday, baseball team travels to Notre Dame to take on the Fighting Irish in a single game at 5 o'clock. Women's softball team is here at home. Doubleheader against Western Illinois from the Mid-Con. First pitch 3 p.m. Friday, men's and women's track and field is at West Lafayette, Purdue University for the Boilermaker Invitational. volleyball team rather, has the semifinal match with Lewis University, 5th-ranked team in the country, #1 seed in the MIVA. If they win, they play in the championship match Saturday night. We wish the Dons well there. Also Friday, baseball team has a single game at University of Illinois Chicago from the Horizon League. That's Friday night. And then Saturday again, if the Dons win in volleyball, they'll play either Ball State or Loyola for the MIVA championship and a trip to the Final Four in Long Beach, California. And on Sunday, the baseball team is at Illinois Chicago as well. So again, a busy week of athletics here at IPFW. That's it for this abbreviated edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Again, we apologize for technical difficulties, not being able to bring you a couple of tennis interviews. We wish the Volley Dons well. We thank you for tuning in, as always, to see what's going on with IPFW Athletics. We invite you to come back next week, our annual Coaches Roundtable show. We'll have Joe Pachota, Chris Paul, Mike Harper, and Ryan Perrott on to talk about the doings from the coaching perspective this season. That's next week's show, and we're all done this week. But again, thanks for tuning in. This is Mike Moss saying, have a great week. We'll see you next week, and go Dons. The weather's getting better outside. That must mean only one thing. The school year is coming to an end soon. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, we're going to highlight, as always, what took place last week on the athletic front. A couple of seasons came to an end for a couple of our teams. And we're going to have Roundtable 3, as we're going to chat a little bit with 3 assistant coaches here on the IPFW athletic staff and look back at the year that's just about complete. Our show is called Mastodon Spotlight. Stay tuned, it's coming up next.
A Stargate. That's the door to other worlds that my character Tilk and the rest of my team use on Stargate SG-1. It's a door to exploration and exciting adventure. An education can provide you with a similar passageway to a world full of possibilities. So stay in school and graduate.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, the weather's getting better outside. I'm able to wear shorts now, which is kind of nice. And but that does mean that as the temperatures get warmer, the school year is getting closer to coming to completion. As we're taping this edition of the program, it's nearly the 1st of May. Finals are next week. Hard to believe that in 2 weeks it's commencement. And we'll talk more about that next week. We're going to lose one primary person here at Mastodon Spotlight who's meant an awful lot to me, but we'll rib John a little bit later sometime next week on next week's show. Let's get into our weekly review of what's taken place here with IPFW Athletics. And we're going to start with tennis. The men's tennis team participated for the first time in postseason play in the Mid-American Conference tournament. They traveled to Western Michigan University last Thursday to take on Northern Illinois, a team that they had played just a few days prior here at IPFW. And unfortunately, the same result took place. When they played here in Fort Wayne, Northern Illinois won the match 7-0. Under MAC tournament rules, it's the first team that gets 4 points that's declared the victor, and the Huskies came out on top 4-0. So men's tennis is over. There's a possibility we may have Eric Burns on next week. We're still working on that. We're not sure to talk about the season en masse, but the men's team finished with an overall record of 7-19. The women's team, which completed their season about a week and a half ago with a victory at Cleveland State, they finished the season with a record of 6-19. Again, we hope to talk to Eric next week if we can work everything out. But that's tennis. Now let's move on to volleyball. And hopes were high. It was the MIVA semifinals taking place at Lewis University. Flyers were the regular season champions, so they earned the right to host the semifinals and finals at Romeoville, Illinois. And as I said, the Validons were thinking big things. They had a big on-the-road defeat of Ohio State University a week ago down in Columbus, snapped a 10-match losing streak. And even though Lewis had beaten the Validons twice, hopes were high as the team headed west towards Chicago. And unfortunately, the hopes were dashed as Lewis eliminated IPFW from further competition. They won the match in straight sets by scores of 30-22, 30-27, and 30-24. Tough way to go out for Jeff Patak, the senior from Hamburg, New York, had 11 kills and 7 blocks. Matt Zbyszewski from Toronto, Ontario, led IPFW's offensive attack with 14 kills, and sophomore setter Dennis Santiago dished out 43 assists and also had 6 digs. Wasn't quite enough. The Dons lose in 3. They finished the year, however, with the only winning record of all IPFW athletic teams. And I think kudos to head coach Arnie Ball and his staff. They finished 15-10. They finished 5th in the MIVA, 10-6. And you stop and think in the conference alone, regular season, Lewis was 15-1, Loyola Chicago 13-3. Ball State and Ohio State each finished 11-5, and the Validons finished 10-6. Compared to the last 2 years where you had the transitional period for the rest of the university into Division I status and a number of injuries, including the 2 key knee injuries to Jeff Patak and Matty Zbyszewski last year, the fact that they were able to play the entire season and the team did respond, I think 15-10 overall, and making the semifinals in postseason play is a good stepping stone for the Validons. One other quick note, Jeff Patak, and we announced this last week, that he was the MIVA Player of the Year. He also made second team All-American. So he's one of the best 12 players in the country as rated by his peers, coaches, and I believe sports information directors from around the country. So congratulations to Jeff Patak on a stellar career here at IPFW. And though he didn't go out winning a national championship, he all made us proud. He had that season-high 43 kills. And that was a nationwide high for kills in a match, 43 kills at Loyola Chicago. So we wish Jeff nothing but the best. Come June 1st, he'll be heading to Colorado Springs to work with the Olympic program, and he's been invited. Hopefully he will make the World University team that Coach Arnie Ball is going to be the head coach for the United States. And if all things go well, those games will take place in August, I believe over in Korea. So again, kudos to Jeff Patak and everyone else on the volleyball team for a job well done. Now let's turn our attention to baseball. Tough week for Coach Billy Gernon's squad last week. Last Tuesday, they traveled to Toledo, Ohio, took on the Toledo Rockets in the Mid-American Conference, lost that ball game 10-2. Key inning, first inning, Toledo scored 8 runs on 9 hits and 2 IPFW errors. Again, they lost 10-2. Bright spots, shortstop Mark Szymanski went 3 for 4 with 2 RBI. Left fielder Dustin Freemium had 2 hits. And pitcher Jason Horvath, even though he had that bad first inning, he gave up 8 runs. Only 4 of those were earned. He didn't walk anybody and struck out 7 in 6 innings of work, but his record did drop to 4-5. Again, final Toledo 10, IPFW 2. On Wednesday, back home here in Fort Wayne, the Mastodons took on Eastern Kentucky, and that was a seesaw affair. IPFW had come from behind to take an 8-7 lead going into the 8th inning, but Eastern Kentucky scored twice in the 8th and tacked on 6 more runs in the 9th inning to win 15-8. Ryan Kenya went 3 for 4 with an RBI. Brandon Armstrong 3 for 5 with an RBI to lead the IPFW offensive attack. Dustin Freemium, Tyler Fowler, Billy Banks, and Brent Allwine also chipped in with 2 hits apiece. Losing pitcher was Adam Ferris as his record dropped to 3-3. Again, final EKU 15, IPFW 8. Thursday, the team traveled up to play nationally ranked Notre Dame up in South Bend, and Billy Gernon told me on Friday that was the best team he had seen all year. Irish defeated the Dons 13-3. Then the team got on a bus after getting home late Thursday night from South Bend. They slept at home, and then got on a bus Friday morning and headed to Chicago to take on the Flames of the University of Illinois of Chicago from the Horizon League. And it was a tough weekend for the Dons. On Friday, they lost 7-1 as UIC scored 4 runs in the first. IPFW only managed 5 hits, 2 of those by Brent Allwine. Aaron Von Allen lost his first decision of the year. Again, Friday was 7-1 UIC. Then on Saturday, the two teams played a doubleheader, and UIC brought their hitting sticks, that's for sure, as they defeated the Dons 20-2 in Game 1. Big inning for the Flames was the 5th when they scored 10 runs, and UIC collected 23 hits off of 4 IPFW pitchers. The Dons could only collect 5 hits, 2 of those by Billy Banks. Again, Game 1, 20-2 UIC. Closer game in Game 2. The Dons actually had a lead. They had a lead of 5-2, but UIC came back with 2 in the 5th and 2 more in the 6th to win 6-5. 2 hits apiece for Brent Allwine, Jacob Abramson, and Tyler Fowler. Then on Sunday, game that won extra innings, 10 innings to be exact, the Dons lost 5-4 in spite of 3 hits by Jacob Abramson and 2 hits by Ryan Kenya. And so it was a tough week. Dons finally came home. And as we tape this program, they have a record of 16-29-1. They've got a few more games on the schedule. We'll talk about that later. And then finally, let's look at what happened on the softball diamond. Mixed bag for Coach Keith Fisher's squad. Last Wednesday, they had a doubleheader here at home against Butler University, also at the Horizon League. They lost the first game 6-1, won the second game 3-2 for a split there. On Thursday, Western Illinois from the Mid-Con came to town, and a couple of close ball games, but unfortunately the Dons fell with both of them. 1-0 in Game 1, 3-2 in 9 innings in Game 2. And Saturday, the news was better. The Cougars from the University of St. Francis traveled across town, and Game 1 went to IPFW 8-3. Game 2 also went to the Dons by a score of 2-1. And then on Monday, the team played host to the Rockets of Toledo, again another Mid-American Conference school, and unfortunately they dropped both games by scores of 9-2 and 2-0. The one bright spot through all these games, shortstop Maggie Bruning had a hit in every game but one, and she went 10 for 27 overall, including a 4-4 performance in that 8-3 win over St. Francis in Game 1 on Saturday. At this point, the team is 17-24, and they've got 2 games left. We'll talk about that in an upcoming segment. That's what took place over the past week here on the athletic front at IPFW. Time for a break, and when we come back, it is Roundtable 3 as we will welcome assistant coaches Fred Andrews, Ryan Perrott, and Mike Harper, and we'll talk about IPFW athletics more in particular. So stay tuned. That conversation will begin in a moment right here on College 56 Sports.
In another lifetime, one of toil and blood, when blackness was a virtue, the road was.
If we do not take responsibility for saving animals from extinction, we allow a part of ourselves to die with them. Help World Wildlife Fund protect animals in the places where they live by ordering a free action kit. Together, we can leave our children a living planet.
Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter from the storm.
I'm sick of dealing with you. I'm sick of.
I work 6 days a week.
Who do you think you are? Don't you ever talk back to me again! You just shut up!
What are you crying about?
What a child learns about violence, a child learns for life. Teach carefully. We can show you how. Act Against Violence. Call 877-ACT-WISE for a free brochure.
I wasn't going to school because I was hanging with the wrong crowd.
And one day I was put into juvie for 2 stolen cars, robbery of a house, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. When I was locked up, that's when I really realized that, I mean, it wasn't for me. Like, I was only in there 2 months, but to me that was enough. It'd be better for me to stay in school, just get my education. I think I'm happier now. I know I'm happier now.
Well, welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. For the past 3 years here on the show, we've had an opportunity to spend one entire show talking with some of the assistant coaches here on campus about the various sports and about their jobs and so forth. And we want to keep that tradition going. So on this week's show, we're happy to have with us, to my immediate right, Fred Andrews from men's basketball. To Fred's right, my old sidekick, Ryan Perrott from men's volleyball. And to Ryan's right, Mike Harper, who I like to call Tonto sometimes. Terry Stefankowitz is #1 guy for men's and women's soccer. And my warped sense of humor, Mike, maybe in about 3 years you'll understand where I'm coming from. But welcome back for Roundtable 3. And the first thing I want to do is throw a generic question out. Is it me, or is it just the fact that has this school year and this athletic year come and gone rather quickly?
No, you're absolutely right. It has come and gone. You'd think, 8 months or so ago, when we were just starting up with the fall sports and how everybody thought it was going to be a long and dreary fall and winter, and here we are now, September, end of April, May is almost here, and who knows, 2003 and 4, people are going to be saying the same thing, how fast it went.
Ryan, let me talk with you first because you're the new kid on the block.
Yes.
You decided to leave the comfort of harassing me to work with Arnie Ball, and unfortunately the season came to an end Friday night at Lewis when we lost to the eventual MIVA, not only regular season but postseason champion Lewis Flyers. Talk about your first year as an assistant coach.
It has been, I don't want to say it's been a blur, because I think that would be an unfair word to use. It has been a magnificent experience, but it's gone fast. When I was asked to and approached to become the assistant men's volleyball coach following Dave Schmidlin's departure back in August, I had questions about becoming the assistant coach for 2 reasons. One, because I'm still a grad student here, working up on my master's, finishing up on my master's degree in communications, and 2 is how would I be able to balance the time between being an assistant coach and severing the ties, the friendship, close ties that I had with the volleyball players that I still knew. But as the year went along and I was able to make adjustments in regards to my relationships and my authority figure and all the responsibilities and duties that go on behind the scenes, and that's the big thing that I've learned is behind the scenes, what goes on behind the scenes. And thankfully Coach Ball has been so brilliant in relaying to me all the necessary tools to be successful as an assistant volleyball coach.
One of the things that Arnie has mentioned to me when I point blank asked him how it was like having you on board, and I also asked him about particular match situations when a timeout was called. It seemed like the majority of the time when a timeout was called by IPFW in a volleyball match, Coach Ball would speak with Dennis Santiago, our emotional, and I'll use that word in the nicest way I can, setter, but you were actually the bench coach for the rest, for the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Did you like that responsibility?
Yeah, it's obviously, and Coach used to be a setter back in the day, so he obviously can relate better to Dennis than I can because I never played that position. But as a team sort of strategist, I guess I tried to relay more in regards to, hey, here's what we're doing wrong, here's what we need to do better, and those things I can relay back to the team. Obviously, I've only been out of the sport for about 3 years, and I've known obviously most of the guys except for the freshmen that were just coming in, so it was easy to relay that kind of information onto those guys, and I'm glad that Coach gave me that responsibility to do so.
Did the team overachieve, underachieve, or do about what you expected?
The team, I thought, probably did what it was expected, if not might have, in some eyes, perhaps underachieved. Coming in, there was so much pressure. Everybody built this team up to the great comparison of the 1999 team. I mean, the talent was there, obviously, with Jeff Petak, Angel Ruiz, who came off an amazing year the year before. Dennis Santiago was the MIVA Freshman of the Year, National Freshman of the Year as well. We had a good recruiting class. But when you play the #1 team in the conference and in Lewis, I mean, you have to be on your game. And unfortunately, the 3 times that we played them this year, legit, they were a better team than us. But you know, we're happy the way that it turned out. You know, we went 10-6 in the conference. We finished 5th. We beat Ohio State in the conference quarterfinals on the road. I mean, what more can you ask for? I think that the best thing about our team this year was the development process from January through until end of April. I mean, we made humongous strides, and that's something you can base our success on.
Let me ask one question before we get into a different topic. Final Four, you've got Lewis going to play Pepperdine, you got BYU going to play Penn State.
Yeah.
How do you see it shaking out?
I got BYU beating Penn State. I don't know if Penn State has the firepower or the experience to play. I think Lewis has a legit chance of beating Pepperdine. Pepperdine was #1 for most of the season, but I really think if Lewis can pick up its defensive game and their defensive transition game, they would give Pepperdine a big run, but I don't see Pepperdine losing. And then I got Pepperdine revenging BYU for the MPSF loss, and Pepperdine's winning it all. Sean Rooney's going to carry that team. He was Freshman Player of the Year a year ago. He was magnificent in the finals against Hawaii last year. But I got Pepperdine beating BYU in an epic four-gamer.
We shall see. Mike Harper, it seems like forever when soccer was played. You know, as Ryan said, here we are the last day or two in April, and soccer started way back in, do I dare say July?
Yeah,
August. We had the
yeah.
showcase in August.
Yep.
This year, and of course you've got the added duties, not only the men's team, but the women's team as well. Let's look back at your soccer team's season. I know the women's team was really bit hard by the injury bug.
Yeah, we didn't have the numbers on the women's side like we did the men's, and towards the end of the year, the amount of games that we played, it really took a toll on them. I think we had to dress the camera girl for one game, so we were definitely hurt. But they turned around at the end of the year. They had, I think, their last 5 games. They won a couple of them, tied one, and even the losses by 1 goal. So they turned the corner, and they carried that into the off-season. They've been training with Performance One. They've been doing a great job. And we had a few spring games. They went down to Indiana State. I think they beat Evansville, beat Xavier, Indiana State, and then we lost to Louisville, and they ended up winning the tournament. So they've had some real good showings, and I think they've turned the corner, and with the recruits coming in, we'll have a real strong team next year. And on the men's side, I don't want to say it's disappointing, but I know they were frustrated as well. They were in a number of matches. They just came out on the wrong side of the score. Yeah, I think we talked about the last show, like there's 7 or 8 games where we lost by 1 goal. So they're definitely competing, which Terry and I are happy about. We need to fill a couple holes. We think we've done that with the recruiting. We'll see. And they have also had a great spring season. They tied the PDL team 2-2 the other day. And PDL stands for? The Professional Developmental League team in Fort Wayne. It's the new team. A lot of ex-college players and a few high school kids too. So they've turned the corner. Hopefully we'll have a great year next year with them. Freddie, basketball, 9 victories. It may not sound like many, but compared to what last year was when we got the first taste of real, live, consistent Division I basketball, as I know Doug mentioned on an earlier show, when you triple the road wins and you triple the overall wins and so forth, 9-21 may not sound successful, but I think in a lot of ways 2002-2003 was a successful year on the hard court.
Yeah, we made a lot of strides, and when you look at the experience on the team, we only had 2 seniors, played only 1 junior. You know, that's something that we can build on. You know, we got 4 starters back from last year. We got 4 other freshmen that played a lot, over 10 minutes a game. So there's a lot of improvement, a lot of growth, and we're real excited about the development. You know, I think we can take another step forward this coming year. And you know, another thing that we did was we were real competitive against a lot of teams. You know, Oregon State, we had a great shot at winning. You know, Butler we played okay against. You know, Nebraska we're tied at half. You know, Wyoming we were up with 9 minutes to go. So I mean, those 2 games were on the road. So I mean, we're playing against some big schools and have a shot at least winning. Are very, very competitive. You know, now we got to take a next step, and these kids are working hard. You know, just like the soccer team. You know, our kids are working hard with the Performance One with individual skill instruction. So you know, they got to take that into this summer, continue to elevate their game, and we're really looking forward to the even more growth next year.
Both you and Mike mentioned Performance One, and we did have a representative on along with head trainer Dan Fox a few weeks ago, but Ryan, I don't know if the volleyball team's been involved yet.
Not the
with
men's
it or
volleyball team, not yet. We won't begin
your
until the
season's
fall.
just ended.
That's correct. We won't begin until the fall. Everybody else has used Performance One, and the reviews are back, and they're pretty good. Performance One is doing their job in regards to not just the strength training, I think, but proper technique in the individual sport that they use, and that's the big thing. And I think that's, I would like to say, diminished most of the injuries that we've had on campus in the last several years is because of Performance One coming in and teaching proper techniques in regards to strength training and to the individual skill or sport that you perform at.
So you'd highly recommend it to anybody?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's like asking them. I mean, we were doing strength training for us, myself. Well, now you got an actual guy who's been not only trained but went to school for that. That's like asking them to go out and coach basketball. They're not trained for that. I think we have some background, but now you get professionals who understand and everything. I mean, that's just a huge advantage.
Let's go to a different topic, academics. One of the things that Mark Pope has mentioned since he came on board as the athletic director is he wants to emphasize, and not only Mark, but all your respective bosses and all the head coaches and all the coaches period here on campus, there's an emphasis more on the fact that these are student athletes that are coming here to IPFW. It's not athletes coming to play a sport, student athletes coming to obtain an education and being able to participate in intercollegiate athletics on the side, so to speak, because the reality is 99% of all the student athletes that participate here are not going to play professionally. There will be some exceptions. But this year, it seems like the grade points have all gone up. I think for all the athletic teams here on campus, talk about your feelings about the emphasis on academics as well as athletics. Mike, start with you.
I think it's great. I know Mark Pope is, since day one he's been here, has been drilling it into our heads. We got to keep these kids, on top of things, and they're doing a great job. Courtney Reed and Chris Kuznar have been helping out tremendously, and what a relief it is for Terry and I to go in and not have to worry about our kids academically because they're all doing fine. I think last spring our women's were #1 in the athletic department, and this past fall our men were #1. In the history that I've ever been here, we're usually at the tail bottom. So I think it helps that we have been recruiting better kids, and they're taking care of themselves, and all the support around campus is tremendous. And I think every sport was way up there, and it's just tremendous. It's one less thing we have to worry about. We got great kids who are doing well.
I know one thing that I neglected to mention last week, and I'm going to mention this week, the women's cross country team finished 8th academically in the nation out of 323 Division I cross-country programs. IPFW was #8 nationally, and I believe, I don't have the exact number, but it was, I want to say it was a 3.23. I could be off it, but tremendous numbers in the classroom.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's just a testament to the student athlete and to all the support staff that are here, as Mike said, because I mean, I've told you this 1,000 times before, Mike, there's nothing harder than being a student athlete.
Yes.
There's nothing harder. All the pressures and everything else, the outside external factors that goes into being a student athlete, and to be able to concentrate and sit down and focus. And I think another statistic, 60% of our student athletes last year were 3.0 or better.
Yeah, correct.
I think, we had several student athletes who had 4.0 GPAs.
Yes.
Speaking from the men's volleyball side, we had a GPA of I think just under 3 or about 3.0. I mean, it's just a testament to the kids that come in here and are so well-rounded that they can focus on not only the athletic side of things, but the academic side of things as well.
I want to continue this. We're going to take a little break in a minute, but when we come back, I want to parallel men's basketball and men's volleyball in the classroom, in the sense that towards the end of the season, you guys lived out of a suitcase. On the men's basketball team, and the volleyball team spent the first almost 2/3 of the season at home. But we'll discuss that parallel, and we're going to discuss a lot of other things such as recruiting, scheduling, and who knows what else. And we'll do that when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Places that comfort us with their serenity. Places that astound us with their beauty. Places where our memories come to life. Precious places. Timeless places. Places that with your help can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
I was a liberal arts major in college.
I didn't speak a second language.
What could I?
What could I offer the Peace Corps?
The answer surprised me. I served in South Africa teaching HIV/AIDS awareness.
Working with my students in Nicaragua was a great experience. We taught each other a lot about our countries and cultures.
This is the Peace Corps today.
Redefine your world. Join the Peace Corps.
Apply now at peacecorps.gov.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. It's our annual roundtable show here with assistant coaches. Again, to introduce everyone to you, to my immediate right, Fred Andrews from men's basketball, to Fred's right, Ryan Perrott from men's volleyball, and to Ryan's right, Mike Harper from men's and women's soccer. Before we went away for the break, we were talking about academics. We were talking about the fact that there's been an emphasis on academics ever since Mark Pope took over as athletic director. And I want to go back to Fred and Ryan, and we alluded to the fact, and Ryan, you did, about how difficult it is to be a student athlete these days because you are expected to perform on the athletic field, you're performing in the classroom, and you perform in the public, and that's another segment we'll get into in a moment. But as I said earlier, I want to parallel men's basketball and men's volleyball. Fred, as we both know, you guys, by necessity, because we are not a member of a conference in basketball, have had to spend the last 2 years basically on the road, as opposed to volleyball, which is in the MIVA, but we'll get back to that in a moment. Towards the end of this basketball season, you guys literally, with the exception basically of a week, the last week of the season, not counting the trip to Maine, you guys were on the road. You're on the road. You know, we started the season in November with Butler here at the Coliseum, but then you had to go out, you went out west. And over Christmas time and early January and in late December, you played at San Diego State and UNLV and Nebraska and Wyoming and several other places and so forth. But talk about the difficulties of having to travel. You know, you've got to perform in front of a hostile environment. And for the most part, attendance was pretty good. But it's taken away from time in the classroom. Talk a little bit about the relationship that you and your fellow coaches have to have with the academic professors here on staff, and how, I mean, I think back, David Simon 4.0 in engineering, and Jim Kesnick, I think, was like 3.8 or 3.9. You guys are away from the classroom so much, and yet you are able to pull off tremendous GPAs. How'd you do it?
Well, I think it's a testament, like Ryan said, to our players. I mean, first of all, you got to communicate with your professors. You got to let them know when you're going to be gone. Find out what they need to do. The good thing is a lot of these kids have computers, and with a lot of professors putting notes up or whatever on the internet, they're able to get on the, even on the road, they're able to get online, get these notes and everything, or get them before they leave so they can kind of stay up on top of things. And whether we're in the airport, whether we got 2-3 hours a time, in the hotel, we also, they do a great job of staying up on their academics. And, again, it's a testament to them because they want to be very good students. They want to get a degree. They understand how important it is. And, that's the important thing is just staying on top of things, in the fall, getting off to an early start. So at the end of the year, you can kind of, you got some leeway, but you understand what's going on. And then, early on, again, getting with your teachers, figuring out what they need to do beforehand, and then either talking to the teachers or fellow students who in their class, getting notes and everything to help them out.
Ryan, maybe the word parallel was the wrong word to use. My wife was the English major, not me. Maybe the word should be contrasting, because as we talked with Freddie about having the basketball team spend a lot of time on the road, for whatever reason, I don't know if Arnie planned it this way or not, for the first almost 2/3 of the season, you guys were at home. You went to Puerto Rico for the preseason, so to speak. But then we came home and we started off with 2 matches with UC Santa Barbara and then George Mason and St. Francis and so forth. And the bulk of the first 2/3 of the season was here at home. Contrast, Ryan, I mean, Freddie's being on the road with your team being at home, being able to go to class every day.
That's right. It is a very contrasted. The scheduling is probably the most important thing when it comes to a student athlete's performance. And we are lucky because we don't have anything in the fall except 6 weeks of practice mandated by the NCAA. So we get to get off to a good start because we're not on the road traveling. We're here. So we're settling into a groove. This year, I think it was planned by Coach, but I don't want to speak for him on record, that he wanted the majority of the matches at the beginning to be at home. And that was, at least for our student athletes, probably the most beneficial thing we've done this year. And the guys, obviously being here throughout the course of the fall, were able to get in that academic groove, know the responsibilities of balancing volleyball with academics, being able to go to class on a consistent basis. And the thing with men's volleyball that is different perhaps from even men's soccer, women's soccer, or men's or women's basketball is our matches are on the weekend. We only have maybe 2 or 3 matches during the course of a 4-month period of time that is on a Monday, Tuesday, or a Wednesday. So we pretty much have a Friday, Saturday. Thankfully, that's beneficial to our players too, that we don't have to miss as many classes as, say, basketball players do. So I think that the scheduling part, to be at home anyway, was able to get the players in a nice academic and athletic rhythm.
Not to feel left out, Mike, let's go back to your 2 teams for the simple fact you begin the school year right off the bat playing. So in a sense, your teams are under the gun because you got to perform right away both places, on the soccer field and in the classroom. How were you and Terry able to help keep your kids in check?
I think it was real tough, but at the same time they were so busy they had to manage their time, and I think that helped them out. It seemed like a lot of traveling just because Terry and I were doing both. I think we figured out we were like over 200 hours on a bus between the 2 of us, or together, so it seemed a lot more busy just because we were doing both. But I think the men, no, the women I think pulled off, no, the men did. The men pulled off a great GPA. They were both right up there, right around 3.1 I think, or 3.0, so they got the job done. We had times in hotels where they got together and studied and whatever, but for the most part, we got some good kids and they knew how to manage their time. I think they find most of their troubles when they have a lot of time and they can put things off, so they were well managed.
Let's change topics a little bit. Let's do some more comparing. This year just about completed as opposed, in the case of Mike and Fred, to last year when you really got your first taste of Division I competition. Was it easier this year than last year in the sense that you had already gotten the taste of it, or was it more difficult because you had to play perhaps I don't want to say better caliber, but maybe a tougher caliber of opponent for the most part?
I think it was just the same now. I think it was maybe a little bit easier because, one, our kids understand what type of level, and more importantly, the physical nature of Division I basketball is. I think that was a big deal. The intensity level, adjusting to hostile environments, I think those were key. I think just getting more experience is going to help us, and then another thing is we have more experience with the kids. I think that's very, very important, and as we get more experienced kids who are Division I talented players, you're going to see not only our program but soccer, baseball, softball, everybody grow. Volleyball's been playing at that level, so they understand. So I think that's going to be key. Experience.
Let's move to a new topic, because all 3 of you are involved in this one: recruiting. Ryan, you got your first taste of recruiting this year. Talk about it.
It's a very difficult process. I don't know if, and I know all the sports were affected in one way or the other in regards to recruiting when it came to Division I. But if people don't know, I should tell you that men's volleyball only allows 4.5 scholarships to give out. Very difficult because kids today, as I'm sure that you are well aware of, ask for the world when it comes to monetary value for their kids. And they ask for the world in regards to what university they want to. They want it all. And with men's volleyball, recruiting-wise this year, I don't think it's been frustrating. I think the process, because of our reputation over the last 20-some-odd years that Coach Ball has been around, has been a really good one. Obviously going to 4 Final Fours in the 90s, having a good competitive Division I team year in and year out, helps in the recruiting process. Kids email in, they ask Coach for questions and so forth. But to come down with dollar figures and amounts and how to divvy up the scholarships that are remaining, it's just a very difficult task, especially with the amount of kids that are out there that want to come to your school, that are interested in coming to your school, that want to play it out the top level in the college. It's just a very difficult process, one that I'm still adjusting to, in fact. But one of those things, I guess, is one of those things where you just have to become adjusted to it, and it takes time.
Let me put you, I want to put each of you on the spot, but we'll start with you. And Arnie has mentioned this on his show on occasions. It's very difficult for a Midwestern school to recruit top flight volleyball players for any number of reasons. One of which is, even though Arnie's been here for 23 years and has built a tremendous program, as he says, when you get somebody, say from someplace in the Midwest or in Canada or so forth, and you're trying to recruit, and let's face it, it's not just IPFW here. You've got to go up against Ohio State. You got to go up against Penn State. You got to go up against the Lewises. And that's not even talking about out west where, you know, you've got the prime cuts in UCLA and USC and UC Irvine and BYU and Hawaii and so forth. On your recruiting trails, what is your quick sales pitch that hopefully cements the deal? Because, as Arnie says, some people, they look at Ohio State or Penn State and they've got their 100,000-seat football stadiums and they like the status.
Right.
IPFW doesn't have that, but as you alluded to, the fact that we've went to 4 Final Fours.
Right.
That is one selling point. But pretend I'm the potential recruit. Sell me an IPFW in 60 seconds.
You want a car? Just kidding. Just kidding. Aside from selling on the one thing, and Coach Ball is absolutely right in regards to that, because when you have to deal with Ohio State and Ball State that are just 90 minutes, 3 hours away from here, it's very difficult to do. The sell is with this school, because we're in the new phases of Division I, the intimacy level of this university is so different than that of any other university in regards to student-teacher relationships, in regards to how close-knit all our the athletic family is. Everybody knows everybody. You're special on this campus. You're not just a number if you go to a Penn State or Ohio State where there's, what, 50,000, 40,000 people there. The intimacy level, and I tell everybody this that comes here, the intimacy level on this campus is completely different than what you get at any other university.
What type car can I get?
I got a Toyota.
Okay. Freddie and Mike, you've also got similar situations trying to sell. Freddie, here in the state alone, you've got IU down in Bloomington, you've got Purdue, you've got Notre Dame, you've got Butler, who made a nice run in the tournament, you've got Valpo, who seems to thrive on the Mid-Con postseason tournament, you got Indiana State, Evansville. I'm probably leaving somebody out, but just in the state alone, you've got a number of quality institutions that you got to knock heads with. How are you and Joe and Doug and Cliff accomplishing?
Well, I mean, I look at it, there's 9 Division I teams in the state of Indiana. All 8 of them, other than us, have made the NCAA tournament the last 4 or 5 years. You can look at it as a negative. I look at it as a positive, because what we have is we have a lot of great, very, very good basketball coaches and basketball players in the state of Indiana. Most of them want to stay in the state or in this area. So we're able to get kids, you know, unlike Ryan, where they want to kind of get away. You know, we'll get a lot of kids and who want to stay close to home, who want to kind of help build this program. And when you throw in the academics part, you throw in, you know, a couple games playing at the Coliseum, you know, playing against a lot of great schools, you know, that's an exciting thing. And you know, we'll be honest, we'll never beat hardly ever beat a Purdue or an IU out for a kid, at least right now. But we can challenge the Ball States, the Evansville, and for us, that's the level we need to get. You know, we want to be like the Butlers, you know, of this area. And, you know, I think that's something that we sell, too. I think you always have to find your niche in the recruiting process and understand what players you can and can't go for. You know, you don't want to waste your time on kids you'll never have any chance of. but you can win. And like I said, Butler's proven that, and every other school in this state has shown that they can be successful. So that's why we're excited about.
Mike, on the soccer side, are you able to utilize the fact that 3 years ago you guys were 18, I think it was 18-3-2, or correct me, 18 wins and an Elite 8 participant in the National Division II Championship. Are you able to use that now trying to get the D1 player?
Not as much as we used to. I mean, right, the year after and maybe possibly the year after that, we did a lot. But we always do bring that up in our recruiting process just to show that we did take a program that was mediocre to average and we took them to a high level of Division II, and that's our goal in Division I. And I think we're making good strides to do that. I think these guys made up great points with what they're trying to sell, the recruit as well. Academics, we focus on that, and now that everybody's GPA is skyrocketing, parents love that. I'll tell you what, we tell them that right off the bat and their eyes get huge. We stress academics. And then our biggest selling point is probably the showcase. And we have the biggest and best tournament in soccer in the nation. And there isn't a bigger tournament. And to tell kids that, we have all these teams coming to our backyard. They may not be recruited, by the Indianas or the North Carolina women's team, but they want a shot at either possibly playing against them or playing next to them. It carries a lot of weight.
We're basically out of time, but I'm going to squeeze 30 seconds apiece for each of you. Final thought. What's the future hold? Anything you want to say about your particular program in 30 seconds or less? Mike, start with you.
Future's bright. Terry and I are taking it. We're not stopping. We're going to get a lot of wins next year. The showcase is going to be great again, and expect good things from the men's and women's soccer program.
Ryan?
Men's volleyball will be back at the competitive Division I NCAA championship level very, very soon.
Right.
-1, and we said it earlier, Jeff Patek, second team All-American. Yes. We're going to miss him.
Be
but
the player of the year. Maddie was second team.
Yeah.
Zubrzewski's second team.
A lot of firepower coming back. Fred, you got the final say?
We're real excited. We want to kind of expand on how we finished the year. We won 3 of our last 4 or 5 of the last 8. We want to take that momentum into next year, and our goal is to finish above 500, and that's a big goal, but that's something that we think we can accomplish, and then continue to build on that next 3 or 4 years.
It's been fun, gentlemen. Again, thanks for coming. Ryan, you got your first taster roundtable. Your quick thought. You like it? Want to come back?
I think this is really neat. Well, I'll see you in the fall anyway. People are going to see me in the fall anyway, so this is really neat. What you do is really good. So thanks, Mike.
Thanks for coming. Enjoy the summer, and we will see you in the fall.
You too, will do. Thanks, Mike.
We have been visiting with 3 assistant coaches here on the IPFW athletic staff: Fred Anderson, men's basketball; Ryan Perrott for men's volleyball; and Mike Harper for men's and women's soccer. We'll take a break and then come back to wrap up this edition of Mastodon Spotlight in just a moment.
Movie star heroes get to make some pretty amazing saves. Hi, I'm Kelly Hu for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. I'm here to tell you about an easy way to be a hero in real life. Keep a friend who's been drinking from getting behind the wheel. Even if they've only had 1 or 2, they're more likely to cause a crash and injure or even kill someone. So take their keys, call a cab, or drive them home. Remember, friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Kids, here's my favorite animal. Strong, intelligent, ethical, dependable, compassionate, and patriotic. By the way, where's John?
Intelligent, strong, ethical, dependable, compassionate, and patriotic.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
When I was senator, I did a lot of
After that, I was able to orbit the Earth in a great big rocket ship.
All over America, people are taking the National Radon Test. Have you?
You put me on the spot!
True or false? Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer.
True. I'd say false.
No, it's true.
That's something new to me.
The Office of the Surgeon General recommends all homes be tested for radon.
False.
It's true.
True. So that's bad. We should get our house tested. Sure, I'm gonna call it.
1-800-SOS-RADON.
How can you not call?
1-800-SOS-RADON.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with the Unholy Three, as I like to call them on occasion. Fred Andrews from men's basketball, my old sidekick Ryan Perrott with men's volleyball, and Mike Harper with men's and women's soccer. We really enjoyed doing this, and the coaches love coming over, so we hope you enjoyed it as well. Well, as I said at the beginning of the program, the school year is coming to an end, and that means the athletic season is coming to an end as well. There are only 3 teams that are still participating in spring sports here on campus. Upcoming this week, as we're taping this program on Tuesday, the women's softball season comes to an end later this afternoon as the Mastodons play host to Indiana Tech in a doubleheader. And we hope to have head coach Keith Fisher on next week to review the season. The baseball team has still got a few dates left. They are at Louisville on Tuesday to take on the Cardinals. On Wednesday, they travel to Champaign-Urbana, Illinois to take on the Fighting Illini of the University of Illinois from the Big Ten. And as it stands now, this coming Saturday, the team will play a doubleheader at Northern Illinois against the Huskies. And unless something unforeseen happens, that will be it for baseball. And again, we're hoping, we haven't have it confirmed, but we're hoping that Billy Gurnon will be able to come on next week as well. And in one sport we neglected to mention, it was strictly by mistake, track and field. Still has a couple of meets left. And I know they participated down at Purdue last week. I honestly don't remember how they did, and I apologize for that. But we'll keep you abreast of how they do this weekend on next week's show. Real briefly, what's ahead for Mastodon Spotlight? Next week we hope to have baseball, softball, and tennis, and to wrap up those seasons. And then 3 more shows by demand, I shouldn't say demand, but request. We are going to repeat our shows on the substance abuse policy that's been established here. And then the last week of May, we're going to have a best of show, and I'll talk to you more about that in the next week or two. But that's the schedule for Mastodon Spotlight for the next few weeks. So we hope you stay with us for that. Time's up for this show. Again, thanks to everyone who participated, and as always, thanks to you, the viewer, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW Athletics. We invite you to come back again next week for another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. But until next week, this is Mike Maas saying, have a great week, and go Dons.